So in Sweden, they have a different model than we do in the US. And I'm told by the right wing here in America, well, of course it can't work. Those guys are socialists. Socialists are totally dangerous. If you go around redistributing the wealth and sharing it with the middle class and the poor, well, that's gonna destroy your economy, you knuckle-headed socialist. Well, let's find out if that's true, because Sweden actually put a very left-wing government in power in 2014. Their economy was struggling. I bet they tanked it, right? Well, let's find out. Bloomberg explains, high taxes, strong unions, and an equal distribution of wealth. That's the recipe for success. Wait a minute, success in a globalized world, according to Magdalena Andersson, the social democratic economist who's also Sweden's finance minister. Now, she says that's her recipe for success, but is it true? The 50-year-old has been raising taxes and spending more on welfare since winning power in 2014. Oh, I mean, I'm told by not just the right wing in this country, but all of the media that is, you cannot do that, man. You lower taxes to stimulate the economy. Raising taxes, that'll kill your economy. What are you doing? And welfare, okay, let's find out. Sweden has one of the world's highest tax burdens, with tax revenue about 43% of GDP, according to OECD data. The equivalent figure for the US is about 26%, much lower. Sweden's economy has grown almost twice as fast as America's, expanding at 3.1% last year, compared with 1.6% in the US. Wait, what happened? I thought it was supposed to kill the economy. It turned out it actually powered the economy. It made it grow much faster than it was growing before, and much faster than it's growing here in America. They doubled us. I thought we were number one. At some points now, recently, their GDP is growing around 4%. When American politicians talk about growing at 4%, they are dismissed, rightfully so in this context here in America, as making outlandish statements that are not remotely possible in the American context. Turns out, they could be possible if we raise taxes. And I know, like, you've been brainwashed by television for so long. No, the rich have to have everything. If they have everything, it'll trickle down to you, and maybe you'll get something. No, if you raise taxes, it'll destroy everything. It's just not true. You know what happens when you have a more equal distribution of wealth? People in the lower economic brackets have more money. You know what people in lower economic brackets do? They spend the money because they don't have a choice. They gotta eat, they gotta have clothes for their kids. They immediately spend it, and that's not a bad thing. What it does is it then goes back into the economy and circulates, and it helps your economy, and that's why you have a higher GDP and higher economic success. When you give massive tax cuts to the very, very wealthy, they don't spend it. They put it in their bank account. Yeah, they might buy a yacht or a mansion here or there, but overall, the billions of dollars or millions of dollars that they have, they largely save it, they keep it, they do not put it back in the economy. It is a losing strategy. You know, when we were actually number one, 1950s, 1960s, the era that the right wing in this country said was a golden era. Do you know how high the marginal tax rate was in America? It was as high, if not higher, than Sweden's is today. It was oftentimes at 70%. At some points in that time period, it was at 90%. Now that didn't apply to everybody. That wasn't mean that they're gonna take 90% of your money. No, they had a lot of different brackets, and if you were at an astronomical number, it would be for 90% of whatever was above that number. Now I'm not saying we gotta go to 90% or even 70%. But what I am telling you is when we had high marginal tax rates, we had a booming economy. When Sweden has a high marginal tax rate, they have a booming economy. But I know another thing that the right wing says, it's gonna turn them into bums. Nobody's gonna work anymore. Well, let's find out if that's true. Sweden has the highest labor force participation in the European Union. Andersson attributes this to tax-funded parental leave and affordable daycare, which makes it easier for both parents to work. See, it's not some sort of left-wing conspiracy. Oh, I raise your taxes and I take the money and I control your life with it. No, they take the money and put it into things like healthcare so you don't die, education so that your kids have just as much of a chance as any rich kid does. And they put it into parental care and daycare so that you can actually leave your kids in daycare and go to work. And guess what happens? More people go to work. I know, revolutionary. So every once in a while, the right wing here, and the media, again, aids and abets them, will say, well, you want to be like Sweden? Kinda, sounds pretty good. So, okay, but guys, come on though, let's be fair. When you do all this taxing and spending and do record amount of welfare, it's gonna destroy your budget, right? Now, our budget is a disaster. We keep cutting taxes and we have giant deficits and enormous debt. So Sweden must be in worse shape, right? Let's find out. In contrast to most of its European peers, Sweden has budget surpluses. Oh, it turns out all of those talking points by conservatives in America were myths. They lied to you through and through. And when confronted with all of this data, you know what they'll say. They probably already said it in the comment section. Oh, just not fair because Sweden's so homogeneous. It's not like America where we have a lot of different races that mix. You know what that means? Well, Sweden's all white. That's why, right? They're not letting refugees in or anything like that. So that's the right idea. Not their tax policy, not their economic policy, which would actually affect their taxes and their budget and their economy. No, let's turn it about race, right? So one thing we know is Sweden not allowing refugees because the key to their success is that they're homogeneous, except for the fact that they have, quote, record refugee inflows, not outflows, inflows. So they have done everything the right wing here in America tells you not to do. They brought in a record number of refugees, they did record number of welfare, they did record tax increases. And you know what they got? They got a booming economy that is growing at twice the rate of the American economy. They got surpluses, they got more people working, and they have a society that works. Now tell me again about how dangerous the Swedish economic system is. Perhaps we should open our eyes and think about other options that actually work. Young Turks.
The real resistance is fighting against Trump and the establishment. Help us get investigative reporters that are going to investigate both of them. TYTnetwork.com/go.